Hello everyone, this is Nick once again, taking a look at the Wave 3 points for X-Wing 2nd edition, this time at the Republic. And for those of you who missed it, I just did a video on the Separatists as well, so click the link up there if you'd like to see that one. And just like in that video, we're going to go through this ship by ship, upgrade by upgrade, talking about the potential points impact on list building and the meta as a whole, starting off with the ARC 170 Starfighter. The points range on the lowest guy we have here, 42 points for the 104th Battalion pilot and 55 points for Oddball at Initiative 5 being the most expensive pilot. Now, just doing a quick check here, getting this up in front of me. So previously, our cheapest pilot on the ARC 170 was Ibit Sam for the Rebellion. Now, Ibit Sam is Initiative 3, has a talent and has a pilot ability. So it's not really fair to sort of compare these directly, but it is important to note that we never had the ability to fly these guys en masse with generic pilots before now. Indeed, at 50 points, Ibit Sam, you couldn't really do anything more than a 3-of build because you couldn't field 4 Ibit Sams. There's only one Ibit Sam, he's unique. In the case of the Republic, you can quite easily field 4 of these, and that is very, very, very relevant. In fact, these guys are 8 points shy of the 50-point mark, and with that 8 points, you can do all kinds of stuff like chuck on gunners, generic modifications, astromechs, all that kind of stuff, and you can fly a nice generic list out of this. Also, it is worth pointing out that in that equation, you can put some named pilots in, and I'm particularly looking at Sinker and Jag. Now, Sinker is the more expensive one out of these. He's actually over 50 points, but if you have cheaper platforms elsewhere in the list, you can still fudge the numbers and make that work. And of course, Sinker helps you on offense, which is generally regarded as a more important ability. Jag's very interesting as well because he's able to acquire target locks when your other friendly ships get attacked. But the cool thing about Jag as well is you can pass off those target locks using other upgrades, which we'll talk about a bit later. Nevertheless, yes, I'm very, very interested in this platform. I think sort of generic builds are very important. Oh, also, this is the carrier for things like Chancellor Palpatine. There is no other platform on the Republic that can take crew, so for that reason, it's going to be very, very important. And in terms of the clone pilots, I'm far more interested in this than the Torrent Starfighter. I think the Torrent Starfighter looks interesting, and look, the points aren't terrible on it, but honestly, especially with the case with Oddball, I'm not interested in Oddball on a Torrent Starfighter when we can put him on an ARC 170. Seems like a very, very good option. At 55 points, he's well below the 1/3 of your list threshold. You can even fly him alongside Jedis, and everything just seems to sit quite nicely. It's not categorically more cheaper than the ARCs on the Rebellion, but given the fact that it has generic pilots, I think this all feels very, very nice. Okay, over to the Delta 7 Aether Sprite. Quite arguably the most hype ship out of this wave. Certainly in terms of my interaction with you guys in the comment section of YouTube and social media and on Discord with the patrons. You guys seem to be really hype about this, and to be honest, so am I. Our cheapest pilot is the Jedi Knight at 39 points. Our most expensive is Anakin Skywalker at 60 points. And both of those price points seem very, very competitive. Now, before we talk any more about the Jedi Starfighter, it is worth pointing out that the key thing that's making it cheap is the expensive access to its configurations, the Delta 7B and the calibrated laser targeting. We'll talk more about that when we get to those cards, but you have to appreciate the stats are a tad lackluster without those. 2 attack dice, 3 agility. Look, it's not terrible. We know that 2 attack dice is way better than it used to be in first edition. You know, those A-Wing or TIE Fighter-like stats aren't just the worst thing in the world anymore. But when you're talking about heavy-hitting aces, you do generally want them to do a bit better than that. Bear in mind, all of these guys have force tokens. That does make their attacks a bit better, and with all those green dice, you're likely to see focus results. So I actually don't think they're dead in the water for that reason, and I think there is a case in different builds to not use any of the configurations. Certainly when it comes to Jedi Knights, the fact that you can just put 5 of them on the table, that is a build, and I think that actually has a shot at being competitive. The one thing we can sort of compare that to currently in terms of really fringe meta play is like a 5 of A-Wing build, which is doable. You can chuck a couple of talents on A-Wings and just get it in that 40-point threshold. Your crack shots, heroics, what else is it? Daredevil, all that kind of stuff. And the fact that Jedi Knights have Force tokens, which in itself is such a powerful thing, and it has that baked-in ability, it actually seems like a pretty competitive option just for that 40 points. And hey, if you have 40 points to spare on the Republic, it doesn't seem like the worst thing you can do. Just chuck one of those on the table. I mean, it's cheaper than the Ark. You could theoretically just put Oddball on the table on the Torrent Fighter, but Torrent Fighters pop. Unfortunately, they have that same issue as the Vulture Droids. Yeah, that seems like a lot of fun. Plus, bear in mind, these all have astromech. They can take R4 astromech, they can take the new generic P astromech, whatever that one's called. So they have access to better unlock their dial. There's just a lot of power in these. And yes, let's just talk about this quickly because we have to. Anakin Skywalker at 60 points. It seems right. Even though the platform isn't really all that hard-hitting, the action economy, the ruthless efficiency of Anakin does feel really, really good. He's 5 points cheaper than Vader. And look, he's definitely worse than Vader if you don't have any upgrades on either of them. We're not really sort of comparing those builds because you're going to put stuff on Anakin. Because Vader has the ability to add dice when he has stuff target locked. That makes him way more powerful on offense and really pushes that platform forward. Anakin does have access to that kind of stuff, but you need to invest in the configurations, that kind of thing. And I feel like 5 point less than Vader for that reason feels about right. Their abilities are nearly on par. I'd still rate Vader's a bit more. But yes, I do get the impression in terms of meta play, both Anakin and Evil Anakin are going to do quite well. They seem to be well balanced against each other anyway. I think Anakin Skywalker is absolutely round about 5 points weaker than Darth Vader anyway. Okay, and moving on to the Torrent Fighter, we have our cheapest platform with the Gold Squadron Trooper at 25 points. And our most expensive with Oddball at 38 points. First of all, just looking at that Gold Squadron Trooper, this is 2 points more expensive than a TIE Fighter. And I think this is the key thing we have to look at with this. Being that it's 2 points more expensive, I mean, what are you getting there, essentially? You're getting 2 more hull, but you are losing a green dice. And look, historically with X-Wing, we have found that just having more health on your ship as opposed to green dice is generally more powerful and more consistent. We've seen this argument before with like TIE Fighters versus Z95 Headhunters. Generally just the beefier, chunky health stats tend to fare a little bit better. So from that point of view, I can understand why that costing exists. But apart from that, you do have to compare all the other stats on the ship. It has access to missiles, which TIE Fighters don't. They only have modifications. The dial, definitely worse than a TIE Fighter. I don't think you can really make a strong case for it not to be. The 3 banks being red, the 1 hard being red, does, in my mind, push it well beyond contention in that regard. It's nice to have a red evade off the back of barrel roll. I actually quite like that stat, and I think that's going to be heavily overlooked. Because this is a kind of platform where, yeah, if it gets stressed, you know, that sucks, but it's also such a cheap platform that you don't really care about its action efficiency so much. So making sure it survives to the next round, even if it's not taking actions, well, how good is a focus token if you're only rolling 2 red dice and 2 green dice? I think you'll quite often be happy to take that red evade just to make sure it survives one more turn. And certainly with 5 hull, that's going to help as well. I think that's the key thing going on here. It's nice and chunky. It can carry missiles. It's not quite the cheapest missile carrier in the game. That title goes to the Z95 Headhunter. Nevertheless, it is a decent missile carrier, and comparing it to the Z95, it does have 1 more point of health. I know the Z95 has shields, so maybe that's not the best comparison to make. Plus, I do rate the dial on the Z95 a bit more. I don't know. I feel like this could have been a bit cheaper. I look at this and I think the reason this must be at the points value it is simply for the sake of list building. Maybe FFG just found if they were to make this, what are we at, 25 points now? If it was 23 points, maybe that'd just push everything else too much and allow for some builds that FFG don't want. I can understand that. You have to remember, yes, we can compare these to TIE Fighters and Zeds till the cows come home. But that's not relevant because those platforms are not available on this faction. And that's all I can think. I feel like these guys are very, very slightly overcosted, but it may have something to do with list building. That's my final thoughts on that. I don't think the ship's dead in the water because of that. I think having 5 health is very, very useful, and the fact that it can carry missiles is going to be helpful in some list building things. Just bear in mind that this strategy already exists on the Separatists, and they have the energy shells and a much cheaper platform for them, so don't know, I really sort of gravitate more towards that in my mind in terms of competitive play. Anyway, enough about the Torrents. Let's have a look at these upgrades. What have we got? First, some astromechs. R4P44 and R4P17, both at 5 points. These guys are both invested in you taking red maneuvers. Indeed, the generic R4P astromech allows you to take red maneuvers and turn them white. So, similar kind of mentality behind all of those. And I quite like this. R4P17, 5 points, doesn't feel all that bad, to be honest. Being able to take actions while you're stressed is very powerful. It's sort of reminiscent of what Ahsoka is doing. Indeed, having access to this on Ahsoka is quite nice, because then you can do a red action, give someone else an action even while they're stressed, and you do an action while you're stressed. Yeah, at 5 points, that feels pretty powerful. None of these feel overcosted. Indeed, they feel quite pushed, I have to be honest. I'm interested in all of these astromechs on the Jedi Starfighters. Not sure about them on the Arcs, but the Arcs have 3 hard that are red, so yeah, cool. We never really had a good payoff in the Rebellion for Arcs doing red maneuvers, so this again might put a new twist on that platform. Seems pretty decent. Okay, let's have a chat about these Jedi Starfighter configurations, because, well, apart from anything else, these are more expensive than I expected them to be, but also they're very differently costed. I was expecting these to actually be pretty close. Now, these are costed against initiative, and you can see here on the screen, I'm not going to go through all of this. It goes from initiative 0 to 6. I mean, 0 is not relevant on this platform anyway, but just in case FFG ever decide to make an initiative 0 Jedi, okay, I guess it could happen. I mean, look, the key thing we're looking at, I think, if we're to be honest, is initiative 4, 5, 6. I, myself, am most interested in Anakin Skywalker. And really, when you look at those points values, the calibrated laser targeting is a much cheaper thing. And honestly, the fact that it doesn't make you lose that green dice makes it very desirable. I honestly was more interested in this before the points were revealed. And now that it is so diametrically costed, yeah, I'm really not thinking about Delta 7B on Anakin one little bit. I mean, yes, just having one more red dice is very, very, very good, but 8 points is steep. Basically, that makes the frame, if you will, of Anakin 78 points. Well more expensive than Vader. Well more expensive than Fen Rao. Oh, I don't know. It's a lot. It really is a lot. And 10 points for the calibrated laser targeting feels very, very decent indeed. Let's just have another quick read of what that does. While you perform a primary attack, if the defender's in your bullseye firing arc, add 1 focus result, which is basically on the Jedi Starfighter adding a hit result. You've got to use the resource of your force tokens. I think that's absolutely fine. It's so close to just saying when your opponent's in your bullseye firing arc, just add a hit result. Especially on Anakin with 3 force tokens. It's pretty much how it is. It's interesting, whenever people talk about the force tokens as a resource, I often find the reaction like people saying Anakin's worse than Nien Nunb because he has to spend a force token. And I think that's an incorrect way of evaluating it. Basically, what Anakin is saying is he always gets that ability, but as a different option, you can opt out of that to give you dice mods. That's the way to look at these things. And when I look at the calibrated laser targeting, yeah, it's basically giving you another option for your force tokens. It's basically giving you that extra hit, but you can choose to use that resource elsewhere. Especially on Anakin, who has 3 of those resources. Yeah, that's pretty solid. 10 points, yeah, I'm very, very happy with that. When we put that on Anakin and combo with things like Darth Sidious or Ahsoka, I feel like he's actually going to do quite well. I've heard mixed reviews of how Anakin's doing. But I quite like this a lot. I really love to hear your thoughts on this, guys. Those of you who have actually flown Anakin. Having any luck with the Delta 7B, 18 points. That's a lot, guys. That really is a lot. And you have to think about it like it's making it sort of like an X-Wing. I mean, it's giving it sort of X-Wing-like stats. Or it's closer to the T-70 because it has even more health and all that kind of stuff. And I guess if an X-Wing had those stats and Anakin's ability and 3 Force tokens, maybe that's worth 78 points. I don't know, it just feels really, really steep to me. What are your thoughts on that, guys? I'd love to hear what you think. Palp is 14 points. We knew that already from the last video. Battle Meditation is a bit different. It also scales against Initiative. The cheapest platform you can get it onto is Initiative 3, so it would cost 9 points on the Jedi Knight, which is kind of awkward. You can't really fit that in a mass Jedi Knight list. Not on the 4 of anyway. You'd have to make it a 3 of, maybe with another platform. It's a little bit awkwardly costed. You could put it on one of the more expensive Jedis and fly like some arcs alongside it. I'm interested in trying this out on Luminara or Barriss Offee alongside some arcs. A little bit awkward that you can't do it with named arcs. It's just such a weird card. I like the effect. I am very conscious of the fact that Palpatine does cost 14 points, and Palpatine, I think, is pretty consistent in terms of power level. Flipping it into Darth Sidious and doing that super coordinate to any platform you like just seems really, really powerful. On those platforms I just mentioned, who are Initiative 4, it would cost 11 points, and you're only 3 points shy of Palp at that stage. Maybe that's just the better option. Although that can't go on Jedi, so that is a consideration for list building. It just feels like he's in a bit of an awkward place. I'm not really sure what to make of it from that point of view. Okay, Clone Commander Cody. Let's bring up this and take a look at this. Clone Commander Cody. After you perform an attack that missed, if one or more hit or crit results were neutralized, the defender gains a strain token. Being able to give your ship value when you essentially whiff on an attack, but you only roll 1 or 2 hits, even if your opponent has to work really hard to negate an attack. I like that a lot. I like it for 3 points. It definitely works alongside clones. That is the clear design here. This is not really for going alongside Jedi, because basically you want to attack with this platform first and then a whole heap of your other ships. And if you can get out strain tokens, if you have missiles on your Torrent Starfighters, yeah, definitely worth 3 points. I like that a lot. 7th Fleet Gunner for 9 points. Now, sadly, you can't get this on the 1/4 4th Battalion arc and fit it in for under 50 points. I think that is a clear intention by FFG. It's a little bit too powerful for that, and I completely accept that. Being able to move around your red dice feels really, really decent. I like being able to do that across several platforms. It's just really tough to get it on a decent amount of arcs. I mean, maybe alongside Jedi and arcs together, perhaps. I don't know. The problem is, as I'm about to show you guys, there's a couple of just really awesome options to go on the arc that doesn't really ask that much of an investment. And that's the next card here, Synchronized Console for 2 points. Dope. That is seriously, seriously good. I'm very, very, very pleased with this. I'm curious about putting this on Jedi. It is so cheap for one thing, but I don't know how invested Jedi are going to be in using target locks. I might be wrong there. Maybe they want to get into range 1 and just fire with 3 dice and keep using target locks. That could be cool, but I feel like Jedi is sort of leading into more other strategies. But on the Arc 170, yeah, this feels really, really solid. Also, you can combo with Torrent Fighters, and that means you can better unlock Torrent Fighters' missiles. And to be fair, that's something the Separatists can't do. 2 points feels like, yep, this is an established ability that FFG want on the Republic. It's something that they want them to do that's unique. It almost feels like one of those unique adjective talents. And potentially even more than Dedicated, because Dedicated actually has a lot of requirements that a lot of these other cards don't have. Synchronized Console looks really, really powerful. In those 4 of Arc lists, it's auto-add. I don't care. I cannot see a reason not to take these. If you're playing around with missiles, proton torpedoes, yep, but even if you're not, that's really, really solid. Getting use out of your unused target locks. I mean, guys, just think about all those moments in X-Wing where, like, you rolled 3 red dice and you just had 1 blank and 2 hits, and you had that target lock and you're like, I may as well spend it. I might not get another opportunity. And you re-roll it and it's another blank and you just feel bad. Imagine if you could have used that target lock on another ship. Imagine if you can up the chances of getting more relevancy out of it. That's what Synchronized Console is doing. It's eliminating those feel bad moments. It's upping your dice maths. And yeah, 2 points, solid, love it. Okay, last but not least, we have Dedicated. This is interesting because it only goes on non-unique pilots. So only those specific pilots on the Ark and Torrent can take it. I really like the design behind this. Basically, by giving your ship a strain token is a one-off loss of a green dice, and that's only if your opponent shoots you that round. It means you're basically letting your other ships re-roll green dice, and that is essentially, in most scenarios, math-wise, just giving them another green dice, unless they rolled all evades anyway. But then you wouldn't want to do this regardless. That's the cool thing about this. It's shifting around your resources, and it feels a lot like the Synchronized Console from that point of view, and I really like that. I'm just curious where to put it. I'm very much thinking about Sinker Jag and 2 of the 104th Squadron Battalion pilots. None of those guys have talents, unfortunately, so yeah, I'm very curious. If we take a look at the 7th Squadron Veteran on the Ark, for example, it costs 47 points, so if you were to take that with Dedicated, that would be worth 50 points alone. You couldn't get the Synchronized Console on that build for a clean 50 points times 4. You're losing a bit of list building flexibility by taking this. I honestly feel like I'm more interested in Synchronized Console because getting more value out of your target locks lets you hit harder, it lets you alpha strike better. I think it could be really good. I think it could be really solid. At the end of the day, the Arks only have 1 green dice. How beneficial is re-rolling green dice? I mean, we've all been there. Blank, re-roll, blank. Oh, that was great. I'm glad I've spent points on that. Yes, I'm leaning more towards like Synchronized Console and named pilots over something like this. But also bear in mind, as more and more ships come out for the Republic, this is another one we can always come back to. Because right now, the options for it are very limited. And it's nice to have these sort of foundation cards that are going to get better and better and better as more stuff's released. Anyway, guys, love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think of the Republic and the Separatists? Is there anything that's clearly pushed that you think I missed? Is there anything that's absolute trash that you think I've said is quite good? Love to hear your thoughts as always. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Reddit. Please consider supporting my Patreon. Thank you so much to all of the existing patrons, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.